Welcome into Chicago Bears Now. I'm your host, Harrison Graham. You guys asked for it. We're going to get into some Ryan Pace replacements in just a minute, but there are a ton of rumors to get into, so join us tomorrow and every Tuesday, 4 o'clock Eastern Time, for Chicago Bears Now Live. We're going to have a ton of rumors to dive into tomorrow, including some around Ryan Pace and the Bears head coach, Matt Nagy. But today's video, Ryan Pace replacement. So let's kind of talk about just the latest, right? Obviously, I guess slightly a weird time for doing this now that the Bears have won a game for the first time in 56 days, but I don't think that really changes anything when it comes to Ryan Pace's status because he's made way too many critical errors to earn another season with this franchise. In my opinion, I think the Bears need to hire a new GM this offseason. Now, Ryan Pace's key mistakes are much longer than this list right here, but these are the ones I want to focus on. You paid Mike Glennon $45 million. You traded up for Mitch Trubisky. Look, if you trade up for a quarterback, you better hit, and you didn't hit. You paid Robert Quinn $70 million. No, thank you. He got the bag and said, see ya. And then now you didn't address the offensive line this offseason. And the latest thing is the inability to extend Allen Robinson, just the not being able to figure it out. All this plus several other mistakes, I don't need Ryan Pace as my GM anymore. If it's time to fire Ryan Pace, and I think it's past time, type F in the comments section. I better see hundreds of Fs down there because I don't need to see Ryan Pace running things in Chicago anymore. It's time for a new GM in Chicago. Now, obviously, a lot of you are probably asking, what about Matt Nagy? Luckily for you guys, last week we did a Matt Nagy replacements video. My top 10 candidates to replace Nagy if he does get fired. We'll see if that happens. If he does, we will break it down here on the channel. It's one of many reasons to subscribe to Chicago Bears Now. Now, our Matt Nagy replacements video only got 70 new subscribers, so the bosses pulled me in and say, hey, you better get 150 new subs on this Ryan Pace replacements video if you want to justify doing it. So help me out and hit that subscribe button. 150 subs, we've gotten like 300 on a video before. Shouldn't be that difficult. Hit that big red button and subscribe. It's going to be a raucous offseason and potentially the rest of this season as well here on Chicago Bears Now. Now, to the meat of the video, Ryan Pace replacements. I got 10 candidates that could replace him as the Bears GM in Chicago if he is indeed fired, which I still think is the most likely scenario, but obviously we will wait and see. Number 10, you guys love yourselves some Peyton Manning, and don't we all? Peyton Manning is hilarious. He's got a smart football mind, and I think a role in a front office is very much in his future, potentially as a GM. Maybe team president. Who knows? I know you guys want him to replace Ted Phillips. I've got him at number 10 on this list for a couple of reasons. Number one, ESPN was like, hey, here's a bunch of money to do Monday Night Football, which is a pretty cush gig. And he was like, no thanks. Like, he turned down a ton of money to do Monday Night Football. Is he ready? Is he at a point in his life where he wants to jump in headfirst into a GM role like this? I'm not sure. He's just hanging out with Marshawn Lynch on his Peyton's Places job with ESPN, which is like 10 hours a week, doing that in detail where he just watches film from, his office at home, wherever he's living these days. I don't think Peyton Manning wants to be an NFL GM right now. Is it worth a call? Sure. Is it likely? I don't really think so. So who do you want as the next general manager of the Chicago Bears? This will be the pinned comment on today's video. Who do you want to replace Ryan Pace in Chicago? Go ahead and let me know. Number 9, Thomas Dimitroff, and there's a couple of former GMs on this list, starting with Dimitroff here. Not super high on him. Look, I am convinced that the Falcons just mentally broke down after they lost Super Bowl 51 and that they were never going to be the same under the same leadership. So if they would have won that, maybe Dimitroff would be viewed differently. Maybe I would feel better about him. I don't know if I want a guy who's been around as a GM for 12 years with the same franchise and want to hire that guy right away. I've got him at number 9. He's got good experience, but I can't put him much higher. A guy that would be really higher on my list is John Dorsey because he did some good things with the Chiefs, but he kind of flamed out with the Browns. And the chatter is that he's not that easy of a guy to work with, apparently. It's kind of hard to get along with Dorsey. That's the chatter around NFL circles. The Browns hired him in 2017 and kicked the can on him 2 years later. That speaks volumes. I know it's the Browns, but still, typically GMs get a little bit more rope than head coaches do, and he barely lasted 2.5 years. That's not a very good sign to me. He helped build that nucleus in Kansas City, but that's a few years removed. He missed on some draft picks in Cleveland. Got him at number 8. He's done some good things, but as of late, hasn't been that great. Do you want a first-time GM or a former GM? We'll talk about both on today's show. Obviously, Dimitroff and Dorsey have been general managers before. Type 1, if you want a first-time guy, a guy who's worked his way up and deserves this opportunity. Type 2, if you want a guy who has more experience as a GM but is available for whatever reason. Go ahead and let me know in the comments section. Number 7, Joe Ortiz of the Baltimore Ravens. He's been with this franchise for 22 years, and as you guys know, Baltimore is one of the top 2, 3, 4 franchises when it comes to continuity in the NFL, and that's very appealing to me. He's not, one of these red-hot names in the general manager search, but I think he's one of those underrated guys as the director of player personnel with Baltimore. He's just worked his way up. He's had that role for 11 years, that in the near future, he might get an opportunity. Isn't that splashy name like some of these other guys are, but I think he's a guy worth calling and definitely worth interviewing if you are the Chicago Bears. Now, we've got 6 more candidates to get into, but first I want to remind you guys to get going with our sports betting partner, Bet Rivers, at chatsports.com/betil or chatsports.com/betin. Go to one of those links and get going with Bet Rivers. They're going to give you a 100% deposit match at sign up to $250. That means if you put down $250, they'll give you an additional $250 for free. You can sign up and deposit from anywhere, but to actually place a bet, you must be in the state of Indiana or in Illinois. So in Indiana, it's chatsports.com/betin. In Illinois, it's chatsports.com/betil. All right, number 6 here, Rick Smith, the former Texans GM, who slimily got forced out because if you guys remember, I actually, when I read this earlier this weekend, I was like, oh, wow, I totally forgot it went down like this. His wife actually got breast cancer, so he took a leave of absence, and Bill O'Brien sneakily made a power move, got the GM role as well as they let Rick Smith go, and then we saw how that worked out for the Texans. Rick Smith is a guy who has drafted a ton of Pro Bowlers. He drafted 14 Pro Bowlers with Houston, including Deshaun Watson. Remember that draft? When the Bears traded up for Trubisky and the Texans got Watson? I know the Bears got Trubisky, or Trubisky outplayed Watson this last week, but let's be real. Deshaun Watson is a franchise quarterback, there's no doubt. Rick Smith has a good background. He also drafted J.J. Watt. I think he deserves another opportunity in the NFL as a GM, and hopefully he'll get one very, very soon. So who gets fired first? We're leaving Ted Phillips out of this on today's show. Type RP for Ryan Pace. Type MN for Matt Nagy. Who gets fired first? I think it's Pace. He's been there longer. But let me know what you guys think down below. All right, top 5 here. Will McClay, the VP of Player Personnel with the Cowboys. Some call him the de facto GM in Dallas, but the Jones family, and Jerry Jones specifically, will never relinquish that title. Jerry recently even said, I'm not firing myself, I'm just going to change. Do you want to be a GM or not, Will McClay? Because it's never going to happen in Dallas as long as the Jones family is in charge. I know he likes it there, but maybe this could be the right fit for McClay. Marvin Allen, number 4 on my list, a under-the-radar candidate in my opinion. Everywhere he's been, the roster just gets better. He started his career under Bill Parcells in the 90s. He was with Kansas City from 2014 to 2017. That's when they acquired a lot of their good players. Oh, now he's with Miami. All of a sudden, it's the fastest turnaround in the NFL. Marvin Allen is a really under-the-radar, high-rising candidate in my opinion. I think he'll get an opportunity soon. Maybe, just maybe, the Chicago Bears could be the right fit. Now, I want to remind you guys, I need 150 subscribers on today's video. Maybe you forgot when I told you guys earlier. Hit that big red button and subscribe. Help my brother out. And I appreciate you guys who have, of course, subscribed already. Or if you're about to sub, I appreciate it. It's 100% free. We got videos on the channel every single day. Okay, top 3 here. Louis Riddick at 3. I couldn't put him at 1 because there's just honestly more qualified guys who have been in front offices in recent years. He's been out of a front office for 6 or 7 years. Now, I think he's qualified, and I think he could do a good job, but it's kind of been hit and miss when guys hire people who have been television analysts. Mike Mayock with the Raiders, I think, is working fairly well. It didn't work that well for Matt Millen. John Lynch has done a good job with the 49ers, so it's kind of up and down, right? I think Riddick has enough background experience in front offices. He was a great scout with the Eagles and the Washington football team, worked his way up to director of player personnel. with Philadelphia back in 2010. I like Louis Riddick. I just can't put him number 1. I've got him at number 3. So would you want Louis Riddick as the Bears GM? And if you would, just type me down below. If you want Riddick, type me in the comments section. I see you guys. You guys want Louis Riddick and Peyton Manning to save the Bears. Don't worry. I'm reading the comments section. I see you guys tweeting at me. Type me in the comments if you want Louis Riddick. 2 more candidates here. Mike Borgonzi of the Kansas City Chiefs. When I was putting this list together, my number one thing was, okay, who are guys high up in front offices on very successful franchises? That's why I've got the Ravens guy on here. That's why I've got Borgonzi on here as well. He's been Brett Veach's right-hand man the past several years. He's worked his way up quickly in Kansas City. This is a name to look out for during this cycle if there are GM openings. I think Borgonzi will get a general manager job very, very soon. Why not with the Chicago Bears? And then number 1, George Paton. No, it's not George Paton, although that would be quite a story. Started his career with the Bears as a scout back in the 1990s, so you have that connection there. He's been working under Rick Spielman, the Vikings GM, since 2007, several years now. Many believe, and quite frankly they should, the Bears, have interest in Paton. He's a guy that's been around. He's highly regarded. He's got that connection to Chicago and the NFC North, by the way. He's been with Minnesota since 2007. This makes a lot of sense. Now, I've read some stuff that the only job he would leave for as a GM would be a West Coast job. That's not the Bears. Could Chicago talk him into it? Being the Bears GM has to be appealing, right? Like, the Bears, regardless of how recent years have gone, that's a top 10 NFL franchise. That would be very appealing if I was George Paton. So I think that would be one of the first calls the Bears make, and that's why I've got him number 1 on my list. So I'll ask you guys one more time before we leave you on today's show. Who do you want is the Bears' next general manager? If you still want Ryan Pace, you can type his name in the comments. Something tells me that's not going to happen, though. Let me know, and we'll see you for our live show on Tuesday afternoon.